3 minutes remaining.
Hey guys, IAmRuby here from pixeljudge.com, and I'm chatting to the community manager at Two Dawn Games, Carsten Boserup, and today we'll be talking about Ravaged. Carsten, hello, my friend.
Hey there.
Right, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm well. Been looking forward to this for a number of days now, so let's kick it off then. For those who are unfamiliar with the game Ravaged, could you give a bit of a history lesson behind the Kickstarter project that helped bring this game to life?
Yeah, well, the Kickstarter is a website where people, if they got a great idea, it doesn't necessarily have to be an application, a piece of hardware. They can go to the Kickstarter page and, get help to kickstart their project, where people they can pledge money and support the project. And in return, those guys who pledge to this project, they get some kind of reward. In our case, we had for the guys, I believe it was, if they pledge around $15, they could get a copy of the game and a little nice tag on the forum. So obviously, Kickstarter was a great way for us to get the last funding we needed to, this case, help us marketing.
Yeah, that sounds great. So, Ravaged, the game is centered around two warring factions. So, what's the story behind these factions, and what sort of tone can we expect from the game?
Well, we got the two factions. We got the Resistance. They're like the last remnants of civilization. They are like survivors, ex-military, ex-policemen. The guys you would probably refer to as the good guys. They got a bit more modern weapons, what they salvaged from military bases. Then we got the Scavengers, who are like hardened criminals. They're like the scum of old civilization, and they are focused on just taking everything for themselves and not share it with anyone else. And they're fighting constantly with the Resistance, who are trying to build up some kind of civilization again. And the Scavengers, they just think about living for tomorrow, so they really don't care. They just want the resources now. And there's a hard fight between Resistance and Scavengers. The Scavengers got more like primitive weapons. Of course, they're still powerful, but it's more like built-in weapons, made of scrap metal and that kind of things. That's like the difference between those two factions.
Right. So, Ravaged is completely online-only shooter experience. Was there any thought about including a single-player campaign, or was it always Two Dawn's vision to have it multiplayer focused?
Since the core of this team is from the mod for Battlefield 1942 Desert Combat, these guys in Two Dawn are like hardcore multiplayer. So that's where we want to aim, and that's where we always wanted to aim towards having a multiplayer-only game. But we have been having requests on, some kind of single-player mode, and there's been mentioned something like, like bots, so people can play offline and stuff like that. So that's something we are looking into. Obviously, that's gonna require a lot. It's gonna have some artificial intelligence, which is not easy to make, especially it takes a lot of time. So I guess we just need to see what happens down the road.
Well, as we just mentioned, the game is multiplayer only. Can you share with us what sort of content the game has to offer, like a number of maps, different environments, vehicles, player count, etc.?
We're gonna have 8 maps on release. They're gonna have some different environments, like some are gonna be like icy maps. We're gonna have some desert and some jungle maps. But the whole thing is mostly surrounded around some desert maps. We're gonna have something like 10 vehicles, I believe, at game release. And we're gonna support somewhere between 32 and 64 players. Right now we can't promise 64 players, so it will be up to the server admins to decide if they want to try to push it up to 64. But 32 players, we should be able to guarantee that. We're gonna have 2 game modes at release. We're gonna have a capture the resource, which is a modified version of Capture the Flag. A small change to this is, as it is right now, it's not certain it's gonna stick like that, but the way it is now, you have one resource point on each team, and you got flags that's gonna give you like a tactical advantage to get closer to the enemy resource, and also get access to more vehicles. And then you can basically just drive back and forth, stealing each other's resource. So, but that's something we still like working on, taking feedback from the community, how we wanna, if we're gonna go for a more traditional kind of capture the flag, or if we're gonna keep the way it is right now. The second game mode that's gonna be at release is called Thrust. It's a conquest mode, but it's most like a kind of flag by flag system. Like you have flags in lines, you need to capture the first flag to be allowed to move on to the next flag. But there could be, on some maps, there can be more flags in one line, so you probably have to capture 3 flags in order to be allowed to move on to, let's say, the main base. So there are different maps, and it's gonna be different on those, how many flags there's gonna be.
So all of that will be available out of the box. And do you have any plans for adding more maps, vehicles, and such later on?
Yes, we're gonna add a lot of things, I can promise you that. It's gonna be vehicles, it's gonna be maps, game modes, weapons. I mean, there's basically no limits for what we can add to the game, and we like pledge ourselves to do 6-month free DLC. In the first 6 months after the game is released, it's gonna be free. It's gonna be like just when you update the game, it's gonna be in there, and that could be everything like maps, game modes, weapons, vehicles, and all that. So that's pretty cool.
So free DLC for 6 months after the game released is a very, very, very good thing to hear. And obviously you have played a lot of the game, so you must have a preferred class type and map, maybe loadout. Can you give a bit of detail on that?
I think my favorite class is the bodyguard on scavengers. I think he's got like a crazy look to it, and he's the anti-vehicle role that requires a lot of skills. I mean, he got a stinger to take out helicopters, got the RPG, which is very hard to use in my opinion because he got a drop. Gonna already have a drop after something like 25 meters, so if you want to do like shots over 50 meters, 100 meters, you really need to have skill and really practice a lot. So that's definitely my favorite. The count of that's the bodyguard. That was the guy on scavengers. The guy on the resistance is a guy called the weapon specialist, and he's basically the same guy, and weapons reacts a bit like the same. So it will be the bodyguard and the weapon specialist.
Okay, so the first-person shooter genre is constantly expanding and growing. What do you think Ravaged has that makes it stand out from the crowd and not be just another shooter?
Well, I think if you compare us to the biggest titles right now, I think that where we stand out is our focus on the gameplay. I mean, it's like a huge thing. We're like, of course we want nice graphics, but definitely the gameplay is our first priority. Our game is a fast-paced shooter in an apocalyptic world, and it got awesome vehicles, like cool sounds, and it really takes a lot of team play. I mean, the driver, he can't control the weapons on the car, so he's relying on teammates to like gun, and they cannot like spin all the way around. So there's gonna be a lot of team play in that, which is I haven't seen that amount before. In other things that I also think that stands out is like it's the company itself. I mean, we are listening to the community. We are very involved in the community. Actually, we have these play tests every week where we join up with the community on a designated TeamSpeak, and the players can play with us, ask any questions they want, and of course we answer as best possible. And I could just say already that we've been taking on ideas from the community in some of our past play tests, and we already implemented in the game actually.
All right. It's always comforting to know that a company is listening to its audience, really. Will there be some sort of character progression or ranking system in place that you hope will keep players coming back for more?
We're gonna have a ranking system of some sort. At least we're gonna have a leaderboard so people can like fight to be number one. We aren't sure yet where we're gonna take the unlocks part, because in general we don't like the idea of just because you played like 100 hours, get more powerful weapons than the guy who just started the game. So we wanna try to figure out some kind of system. If it's gonna be unlocks, if it's gonna be allowing all weapons at the beginning, it's something that we're gonna figure out very soon. But we do have achievements. We got some cool achievements like the nut shots. You actually get the damage modifier if you shoot a guy in the nuts. So
Awesome.
you know, so there's gonna be different achievements that are pretty cool to like try to get. Yeah.
Great. So a lot of online games are really trying to bring out the more competitive side of its players. What sort of things do you have in place, or maybe plan for the future, that encourage this, like clan support, tournaments?
Coming from a competitive background myself, playing for a Danish national team in Battlefield and all that, it's competitive gaming is something that I'm really passionate about, and something that I sadly probably won't be like able to go into on high level again. So that's something personally that I've been pushing in this game, you know, and hopefully it's gonna build up some kind of esports scene or make Ravaged to esports title. We already got the spectator mode. Of course, it needs some polishing. We're gonna add battle recorder. We're gonna add squads to promote team play and also social gaming, of course. We've been in contact with the big team leaders, having regular meetings with them, taking on feedback, you know, so we asked the actual, you know, players who are actually playing competitively, we're asking them for help to build this game to be a esports title. So we got this, you know, closed forums and these meetings with them where they can basically say everything they want, and you know, I'll just sit there and writing everything down and pushing it, you know, to the developers. And our last meeting was the Sunday, and we had a 6-on-6 match Monday, which we live streamed actually, and it was a big success. It was a first real test, and it went pretty good. Of course, the game is still in beta, so there are some issues, but it's definitely something we're gonna work out, and hopefully we're gonna have more teams supporting us and helping us with feedback, so we can hopefully make Ravage esports title.
Hi. So competition is healthy and can be very, very fun when it's fair. How balanced are the weapons and vehicles, and do you have any anti-cheat systems in place?
Right now, I think the weapons are balanced. They have assault rifles on both sides. It's pretty much the same amount of damage. Of course, they probably react a bit different, but it's not like the one side have overpowered weapons compared to the other one. Vehicles and of course our weapons of course need more tweaking, but it's something that we're getting closer and closer to have set. For anti-cheat, we got the VAC, and we're also gonna use the global ban list. One of the good things about our game is that we also got server-side hit detection, which is gonna make it a bit more difficult for those aimbotters out there to, you know, make a aimbot. So that's a good thing. If it were a client side, like many of the games you see today, if one team or some guy already made a aimbot, you know, then everybody could most likely, you know, build one themselves. So, but we're looking into several things, alternative anti-cheat measures. So we're not necessarily set for just VAC and global ban list. We might have something on our sleeves.
Okay. Now I got to admit, when I first saw footage of Ravaged, I thought, like probably many other gamers, no doubt, this looks a lot like Rage. But what, if any, were your concept influences?
I wouldn't say that we got a lot of inspiration from Rage. I mean, we're getting inspiration from mostly everything. I mean, we get it from games, from movies, from, you know, the community giving us ideas. But if we have to like pick one thing that gave us the most inspiration, it would definitely be the movie Mad Max, if you know that. You know, it got this, you know, it's an apocalyptic world as well. but you know, it still got that sense of humor and craziness, and you know, the cool looking vehicles that are just like, you know, built together with scrap metal and all that. So that's definitely, if any of these things, is Mad Max is definitely where we got a lot of inspiration, since we all love that movie or that series.
Well, I think that about does it now. Huge thank you to you for your time and for answering these questions. And well,
my pleasure. Anytime.
Anything you'd like to add? Do you have a release date?
We are aiming at late August, and we know that a lot of people out there are concerned about, you know, companies in general releasing a game that isn't finished or ready for release. And of course we aim at late August, but I can promise you guys out there that we're not going to release a game that we don't think is ready for release, so you don't have to worry about it.
Okay, that's great. Well, thank you once again, Carsten, for your time, and keep checking back to pixeljudge.com for more updates on Ravaged, including a preview next week.
Awesome.